Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning, friends. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. I'm Macy. Guess what? Last episode was number 250. 250 episodes. If you have stuck around, you've listened to all of the episodes up to this point. If you are catching up on listening to all the episodes or to all of the episodes, if you've been here since day one, I just want to say thank you to every single listener out there. Thank you for sharing the podcast. Thank you for telling your friends about it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And keep doing that, please. Please, if you are just in conversation with people, they're struggling with something, refer them to the podcast. You don't have to make sure that they're listening or try to mom them or dad them into listening to the podcast, but definitely keep it in the forefront of your mind as a suggestion, because this is a free tool that can truly help so many people if they will just listen. And if they want to take the work to the next level and learn how to actually apply it to their unique life and situations, then that is whenever they can decide if they would like to work together, in which case it takes their growth that much further. But thank you so much for just being here as I celebrate getting to 250 episodes. What a journey. All right, you guys, I have a great episode for you today. We are going to talk about why people struggle with emotional awareness and social cues, and most importantly, how to get better at it, okay? Have you ever been around those people where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like they are not picking up on my cues, or I feel like they can't read the room, or maybe you feel like this. Maybe sometimes you're like, I don't know that I can read the room, or I don't know that I pick up on people's subtle cues. We're going to talk about that today, why that happens, and how to be better at it. So this is going to be a great episode. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit quickly because I want to fit a lot in, but I really hope you take a lot of value from this. So first, let's start with emotional awareness and what it is. It's a part of our EQ skill, and it's recognizing and understanding and being able to name your feelings, your emotions, okay? It's a very, very, very important skill that a lot of people lack. I lacked this before I found coaching. I was in therapy for 17 years. I talked about everything happening in my life, my circumstances, but I didn't actually recognize my feelings, understand my feelings, or nor was I able to actually name them and what they meant and why it drove all of my actions after. That was really a skill that I learned in life coaching, with it being so lovingly and directly pointed out to me. It felt painful at times, but it was so important. So that is emotional awareness. Now, social awareness is picking up on other people's feelings, body language, energy, tone, unspoken cues. And my belief, maybe this is not true, but my belief is that it is very hard to be socially aware and pick up on other people's feelings, body language, energy, tone, unspoken cues if you are not doing that for yourself. Because if you are not doing that for yourself, oftentimes you either lack the skill, or you don't necessarily feel like it's of value or important enough, maybe because your family, your upbringing, whatever, you never talked about feelings. It feels silly, it feels stupid, it feels childish, it feels, if you're a male, you might say it's like womanly, it's girly, guys don't feel feelings, all of that. When you're doing that and you lack your own emotional awareness, oftentimes what's lower on your EQ assessment, if you take one, is empathy. okay? But also that social awareness and being able to connect and relate to people, because you miss out on so many subtle things that other people who really practice understanding their emotions can pick up on very easily, okay? So these are skills, your emotional awareness and your social awareness. These are skills that people often assume that they have, but the truth about it is that many people struggle without realizing it. And when you struggle in these areas, it affects everything. It affects your relationships, your communication, leadership, conflict, connection. Like, it affects everything. So I want to talk about some reasons why people lack emotional and or social awareness, like the hidden reasons for this. Number one can be upbringing or environment. If you grew up in a home where emotions were ignored, where they were dismissed, or there was a lot of heightened chaos, this could be a reason you lack the emotional and social awareness skills. And I really feel like this is a lot of my childhood and young adulthood. We would cry and we would have feelings, but we would get in trouble for them. So because my sometimes grandparents, because my, mom, whatever, would get frustrated with their own emotion, like they weren't able to regulate their own emotion, they would often dismiss ours. Maybe that was not their intention, but that is what would happen, right? If they were burnt out, they had a long day at work, they have a migraine, they're not feeling good, they, don't really want to hear a lot of noise, something upsets one of us kids, we start crying. Then it became about, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. I'm going to spank you for expressing your emotion because it is making me feel emotion that I don't know how to regulate. And I only know to scream. I only know to tell you that I'm going to do something physical, right? That was their coping mechanism to make it all stop. But what that created I think for my sisters and I growing up, and maybe even for my sisters if they haven't worked through some of this, is like feeling like you have to suppress all of your emotions, which is what I did before I ever found my coach. I really felt like a lot of my emotions had to be suppressed, and I didn't know how to talk about them. I didn't know how to feel them. And I think that a lot of it was upbringing and environment for me. Another thing is chronic stress, anxiety, or survival mode. It is really hard to read others or even yourself when you're just trying to get through. And I think maybe we've all been here, but there's a lot of people living like this all the time where they barely feel like they are making it, okay? And sometimes whenever those people come to me, I will recommend therapy if I really feel like it's super, if it's severe and they're having a hard time with their daily routines, they probably need more of therapy support. But if someone is very aware of what they're capable of and they know they're starting to slip into some old habits, patterns, cycles, then that is a little bit different. And when they are really motivated to get out of those anxious patterns, that survival mode, coaching can be a really great tool for them. One of the third reasons is neurodivergence. So some brains are just wired to miss subtle cues. It doesn't mean that this person doesn't care, or if you have a neurodivergent brain, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It's easier to miss. So a lot of times this happens with people that have intellectual or developmental disabilities. If they have autism, they can miss those subtle cues that other people are able to pick up on. And again, it does not mean that they do not care. It's just how their brain operates, okay? Avoidance. That is another reason people lack emotional or social awareness. It's avoiding looking at emotions because they're overwhelming, confusing. It makes them feel too vulnerable. It feels hard. So for a lot of the people that, kind of dismiss your emotions or other people's emotions, it's often because they dismiss their own. Okay, so you have to remember that. If you feel like you're not being seen or heard by a person in your life that really matters to you, whether it's a friend, it's a romantic partner, it's a boss, right? It's a parent. A lot of times people can only give you what they have themselves or what they practice themselves. So if you are super, super empathetic, A lot of times you at least have emotional awareness of how you're feeling. You may not know how to express it, but you're very aware of your emotions in order to have empathy for another human being. If you are someone who totally avoids your emotions, you think that feeling your feelings is dumb, stupid, whatever it may be, and you avoid it like the plague, then oftentimes you're probably going to feel very irritable with people who do express their emotions. You may have the thought that they are too sensitive. You may feel like their vulnerability is very uncomfortable or just oversharing too much. And so you just want to be mindful of if that is one of the reasons you think you fall into for lacking emotional or social awareness. And one of the fifth reasons is you maybe never learned the skill. Okay, emotional and social awareness are taught, and many of us were never taught. This is totally the case with emotional intelligence. It's a skill we can absolutely develop, but for many of us, we were not taught the skills. They were not teaching this in school. So you have a lot of adults that are walking around without these tools, without these skills. Then they're raising children, and the children have very authentic expressed emotions, and they're either helping their child foster a very healthy emotional regulation cycle, or they're not. And it's based on how well is that adult emotionally regulating as well. And here's the thing, even if your kids are grown and you're just now learning these skills, guess what? Your kids are always learning from you, and they are always watching. So even if you have kids that are, 16, 17, 20, 25, 30, 40, or 50, let me tell you that from working with clients who start their journey, no matter what age they start, their kids notice changes every single time. And I can tell you that that is the truth from clients who have started working with me at 30, who maybe have really young kids, right? Or even in their 20s with really young kids, or they are in their 50s or 60s and they have grown adult children. Children notice, and just by you doing the work, oftentimes you inspire your kids more than you ever realize. So it is never too late to learn the skill, even if you don't feel like you did a good job when they were in their prime younger years. You can impact them, okay? So there are many ways that this can show up. It's really not just about being, negative, like maybe not picking up on if you come off negative or if you come off pessimistic or whatever. There are so many ways this can show up. It can be negativity without realizing it, where maybe, if you don't have the emotional awareness or social cues, you always focus on what's wrong. You're always venting. You're always complaining. You're unaware of how heavy that feels to other people who are trying to be more positive or focus on the pros. Okay, so that is something that you have to learn and really recognize within yourself. When are you being negative? And pick up on the social cues of that. Do you see that people want to get up and leave? Do you see that people are uncomfortable? Do you see, are people trying to help you along, but maybe it's just not landing? You have to pay attention to those cues. Another way that this can show up is in oversharing. It can mean sharing too much too fast because you can't read when someone is uncomfortable or unready for that level of vulnerability. Okay, so sometimes people will not recognize that they just keep talking and talking and talking and oversharing. And some people don't have the emotional capacity. Something that my best friends and I do, that we made a vow to do, because we all do personal development work, coaching work. We have different coaches, but we're all focused on growth. Something that we do for each other is when we're stressed and when we just need to vent or unload, the very first thing that we do is ask if one another has the capacity. If I want to share with my friend, I ask if they have the capacity. They ask me if I have the capacity. That is a social cue. That is emotional awareness. That is something that's really important, even in a romantic relationship. Do you have the capacity for me to share what's on my heart or what's on my mind or everything I'm carrying? Because not everybody always has that. And it doesn't mean that they never have it. Sometimes when they have a lot going on in their life, their capacity may be lower. And sometimes it may be higher. And there have been times where my friends need me, and I have to say, as much as it stinks, it's like, I don't have the capacity. Like, I know you don't, and I don't. And so maybe this is a wonderful opportunity to schedule a therapy session or a coaching session, with your coach. They will do the same, for me as well. They will tell me, I don't have the capacity. I'm so overwhelmed with everything in my life, and then I don't take offense to it. I recognize, okay, I need to find the person that does. And a lot of times that's a professional, okay? One of the third ways that this can show up is shutting down or withdrawing. So, not realizing you're emotionally closed off or cold when people need warmth and connection. Again, when you lack the emotional awareness for yourself, you don't give yourself grace, you don't allow yourself to feel your feelings, you will unintentionally be closed off. You don't always mean to, but it will come off as closed off. And when people are trying to connect, you might not have the social awareness and feel really cold to them, very withdrawn. So sometimes that's happened in some of my coaching containers where people want to connect with other people and they, recognize that someone is totally like shut down and withdrawing. So that's something you want to recognize in yourself too, especially if your goal is growth, because you want to ask yourself, why am I shutting down? Why am I withdrawing? And what work would I need to do to overcome that if I'm really wanting to be connected and warm with other people. Another way is talking over people, okay? Missing social cues that others are trying to speak or share. When you are trying to emotionally connect with people and, you are aware of your emotions, you're aware socially, you really have to pay attention to it being a team effort, essentially, right? It should never be talking at someone or talking over someone or having to get your point across, talking louder above someone so that you're heard. Like, really, it should be engaging. I always tell my clients too, if they feel like they're in this situation, to say, like, am I contributing really great things to this conversation? Like, when I leave this conversation with this one person or two people or three people, are they going to feel filled up? Are they going to feel full? Are they going to feel full of love and like they love engaging in conversation? Or are they going to walk away from that conversation being like, oh my gosh, this person does not actually listen. They talk, like they have to hear their own voice, just you want to be mindful of that. And maybe you've experienced people like that in your life where you're like, I can't get a point across. I can't even say anything because I'm constantly interrupted, or that person talks at me, or they talk over me, or they get louder if I try to express myself or my opinion. And that can be very much a turnoff, okay? It's really hard to connect with people when they're missing those social cues. Okay, another way is failing to notice when someone is upset or uncomfortable, okay? This is subtle a lot of times, but again, if you're very emotionally aware, you will pick up on energetic shifts or body language. If you don't practice that for yourself, if you don't allow yourself to feel emotions, express emotions, have grace for your emotions, you will often miss those energy shifts or body language changes. And it's really important to recognize those because, again, in order for us to have connection, in order for us to, have emotional growth in general, we need to be picking up on those cues. Another way that this happens is struggling to express how you feel. So feeling something but not knowing how to name it or share it clearly. This is oftentimes what my clients struggle with, and they've even had to get themselves like an emotion wheel pillow or an emotion wheel. You can buy them online, so that way they can see all the different emotions that are possible, because a lot of times the way we communicate is happy, sad, mad, angry. Okay, but there are thousands of emotions we're capable of feeling. The more specific you can get, the closer connection you can have with people. Okay, because a lot of times it may not be anger, it may be frustration. Those are different. It might be rage. That's very different from anger. So we want to also make sure that we are learning how to truly express the range of emotions that we are capable of having as humans. Something else that can show up is humor that doesn't land. So making jokes that feel sharp, dismissive, awkward because you're not reading the room. Okay, sometimes this has happened too, where maybe I've had clients that sometimes don't realize that they're maybe triggered by something, and so they use humor to dismiss their emotion or to try to cover up the trigger that they feel, and then the way that it's received is not good because it comes off that it seeps through, right? It ends up being like a passive aggressive joke or a dig. and they don't even realize it. And so that's something that's really important to recognize as well. Last but not least, conflict that escalates fast. So not realizing how your words, your tone, or your energy contribute to the tension. Okay, that is really important as well. So now let's talk about the how. Okay, let's talk about the how. So first and foremost, you have to pause and check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? How is it showing up in my energy? That's so important. And then it's about naming those emotions, even when it feels silly. So I feel frustrated, but I think maybe I'm actually scared, or I don't know what to do, right? And it's making me feel anxious. So trying to find and name those emotions that are happening in your body and creating sensations. Another way to really get good at building your emotional and social awareness is to practice observing others. Notice facial expressions, notice body language, notice shifts in tone, and get curious as to maybe what's going on. So even if you're not the one engaging in a conversation, but maybe you're in a room with other people, notice, observe them, watch their facial expressions, watch their body language, watch the shifts in tone. That can help you learn and grow a lot. Imagine yourself being in that conversation with that person. Would you have picked up on it? Would you have noticed those things? Get really good at observing. And then ask gentle, clarifying questions. Like when you're in a conversation with someone and you notice that they get quiet, you notice that they're kind of withdrawing, you can say things like, hey, you got quiet. Are you feeling okay? Do you have the capacity for this conversation? Did that make you feel XYZ? Or how are you feeling? You want to ask those clarifying questions. Don't assume, but pay attention to what energetic shifts you feel, what visual shifts you see, and ask questions about it, okay? Watch how people respond to you. When you're talking, do people lean in like, oh my God, I want to hear more? Or do they pull back? Okay, do they seem engaged with you? Like, oh, let's keep talking. This is a great conversation. Or do they check out? Okay, that is huge for social cues, for social emotional awareness, okay? Really, really big. And that's, again, kind of like what I said earlier. I always tell my clients, when you're in conversations, especially if it's at a retreat, notice how people are responding to you, right? Are they leaning in? Does this feel like it is filling up their cup? Like they're going to leave their conversation with me and feel like, oh my gosh, I love talking to her. She sees, the glass half full. She asks me really deep questions that make me think. She offers solutions whenever I ask, and it could be he or she, but it's like, do you feel when you leave a conversation like, oh, I love being around that person? Or do you notice that sometimes people are like, oh, what an energy drain. Can't wait to go be alone or recharge or not be around this person. So watch how people are responding to you. Watch how you feel around other people, okay? Get feedback from trusted people. And here's the questions. How do I come across in conversations? Is there anything I might not realize that I am doing? When you really trust someone who is going to help you see what, or name what they see, I highly encourage my clients to ask those people. And specifically in my advanced program, the hybrid experience, this is an expectation. Okay, this is an expectation that people are calling out in a very loving way what they see, and that the people who need to do some work are working on it. Okay, I expect that from every single woman that ever goes through that room, of what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, what they could be doing differently, being held accountable, feeling the hard things, and doing the work. Okay. So get feedback from trusted people. Ask them the questions. I even tell clients to say things like, if you ever notice me doing this or saying this, can you point it out? Can you show me? Can you help redirect my brain so I can see every time it happens very subtly, so that way I can change it? I have even told my clients, because motherhood is such a topic I'm working on, and I'm working on not being negative around it. That if I do have negative conversations coming up or a lot of fears, right? It may not even be like intentional negativity. It's likely rooted in fear. It's rooted in uncertainty. It's rooted in, pain in different ways. But I've asked my clients, if you notice this, you know that my goal is to get to a place where I feel really, really good about it. So if you notice this happening within me, please point it out. Please tell me. I've been very mindful to make sure that on social media, when moms specifically are talking about the struggles of motherhood, in their reels, and it's usually to be comedic and funny, but relatable, because parenting is really hard. It has its challenges. But when reels are focused on needing to like drink to get through parenting or being a mom, when it's focused on all the things hard, all the things defeating, all the negative aspects of it, less than positive aspects, I don't even watch the reel. I won't entertain it. If someone sends it to me, I'll probably like it, and I did not watch it. If it's going to have a negative connotation, it's just not what I want in my brain. Sometimes they're funny, and yes, they're worth sharing, or receiving and laughing about it. But many times, because of what work I'm being conscious of, right, in my own emotional awareness, it is not helpful to see the negativity that is portrayed. It's like, we know that parenting can be hard, and yes, we need relatability, but we also need, if we're wanting to grow, those positive influences of people that are really working hard to manage their emotional experiences of it, and to provide a positive light on it, on something that does feel so hard and easy to be negative about sometimes. Okay. Last but not least is, slowing down interactions. Give space for others to speak and respond, especially in tough conversations. When a conversation is tough, it's really easy to feel defensive. It's really easy to want to go into battle. And so you want to be mindful to just slow down and listen. This is huge. Another thing big in the hybrid experience that I expect is that when people want to contribute and solve their peers' problems for them, or jump in with a bunch of suggestions, I'm constantly like, do not unmute yourself. Like, we're on Zoom together, I'm like, do not unmute yourself. Do not help this person right now. Let them totally speak. Let them be in the discomfort of the emotion. You do not need to solve it for them. Okay. And when it's tough and they're really processing hard things, or they're in the middle of some tough coaching, or if they're ever in a tough conversation, like, let them fully process what they're needing, okay, before jumping in. It's really hard, because oftentimes, especially if the tough conversation involves us in some way, or someone's pointing out what flaws that they see or things we can do better, feedback, constructive criticism, whatever it may be, we often get defensive. And when we feel defensive emotionally, oftentimes we will want to speak and respond and overshadow and speak louder, and our tone gets higher. And so you want to just slow yourself down and regulate during these moments, but don't forget to advocate for yourself as well. Don't be a wallflower. Don't let people walk all over you and shush you, but make sure you're being very mature, and again, it being like a team effort. Nobody's just talking at you. You're not talking at them. You're not talking over them. It's back and forth conversational. Okay. Here is the last part of this. I hope you found this so valuable, but here's what becomes possible when you build these skills: deeper, more meaningful connections. You want people to feel seen, heard, and understood, just like you want. Every human needs that, where we feel seen, we feel heard and understood. It is very much something that needs to be a team effort, that sometimes is one-sided when people are not doing their work around emotional and social awareness. This is what puts strains in relationships, friendships, co-working relationships. Okay. It's like when you feel like you are really good at these skills, and then someone in your life is not, oftentimes it will feel like they're very much a taker, even if they don't intentionally mean to be, and very much a negative drain being around. And as a result, oftentimes you'll want to avoid them. Okay. Or, maybe like someone's wanting to avoid you if you are this person. So this is why you want to build the awareness around it. It will also allow you to have better communication with fewer misunderstandings and more clarity. stronger leadership and influence, reading a room, adjusting your message, connecting with people where they are. Okay, that's huge. That's more of an advanced EQ skill, but huge. Also, less conflict and tension because you catch things early instead of letting them build. More self-regulation, understanding your feelings so you can respond, not react. There's a difference between responding and reacting, okay? And then lastly, feeling more confident in how you show up because you're aware of your own emotional impact. You have to remember we are all energetic beings, okay? People are feeling us. People feel us when we walk in the grocery store. They feel us whenever we're driving, okay? They feel like we can feel each other, okay? And you can tell when someone's frustrated even whenever they're driving, right? If they're driving like a maniac, if they're cutting people off, you don't know anything about them, but you do know their energy may not feel good, may not feel safe, okay? Same thing if you're walking around the grocery store, someone's, dang near rams their cart in front of you. They don't smile. They don't say anything. They look like they're peeved, even though maybe they were the one that, was going to run into you. You know nothing about them, but you do know how they made you feel. You do know their energy, okay? Then there's the people in life that feel like sunshine that you can't seem to get enough of, that you're like, I can't wait to talk to them. I can't wait to text them. I can't wait to be in their presence again. I love being around this person. You may not know a ton about them, but you may be able to feel their energy, that they are love and light, okay? And so you want to, if you want to feel more confident in how you show up, you have to be aware of your emotional impact. You have to be aware socially and emotionally, okay? And those are skills that can be built, even if you do not possess those skills right now. If you make it a priority and if it's important to you, okay, you can learn how to change it. And that's something that I work with clients on, okay? So I'm going to leave you with this. Join my email list so that way you always have the most up-to-date information on offers, on freebies, program launches, discounts, anything new, anything important. That's the email list, okay? If you want to follow along on my life and different things that are going on, that's social media, Macy Renee Coaching, Facebook, Instagram, sometimes TikTok, okay? You can find me on there. There's a lot of videos for you to binge if you want to, but I'm not always active on there. So if you send me a message on there, but you also have Instagram, you're more likely to catch me on Instagram as opposed to TikTok. Let's see, from there, if you're ready to do this work, or if you feel like maybe you are, schedule a free consult. We will talk and we'll see if coaching feels like a good fit. We'll see if I feel like a good fit for you, if you feel like a good fit as a client. And if we both feel mutual about that, we can go forward with some different coaching options. Okay? All right. I know this episode was a little bit longer, but I wanted to pack a lot of value in, especially because I've been behind on podcast episodes. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you take a lot from it, and I'll see you next time. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.